glad to be back. Another round of applause for Quinn Lamar. Yeah. I don't know if any of you know this or not, but my very first comedy special just came out. Have any of you watched it? Amazing. Some of you have an assignment to do after the show. It's called Be Yourself, and you can watch it on Amazon. But that just came out, and this is my very first show of 2024. So I don't know if you guys quite know what you're in for this evening. You're among the first humans to ever hear my brand new ideas. Are you ready to get a little experimental with me tonight? Are you ready to get a little weird with me tonight? Like how weird? Like are you guys into tentacle porn? No, forget I said that. That was a weird place to start. All right. Here we go. You guys, I went to 80 cities last year. I went around the world going, it was the 90s. Don't worry, I'm gonna do that a whole bunch. You're gonna get your money's worth tonight. I went all around the world basically telling people about my religious trauma. Some of you have that too. And like now that I'm starting over with a brand new hour, I'm like, my God, do I have like more fucked up church stories? And I do. I have lots more. And I want to tell you about those. But there's some different things in my life this year that kind of shade everything a little bit differently. The first one is I finally turned 50 years old. So I just had my first doctor appointment as a 50-year-old person. You know what happens? The colonoscopy. All of my straight friends were like, you have to be under full anesthesia for the colonoscopy. And I was like, do I? Let me see it. Is it girthy? What? My doctor walked in to the appointment, and she was like, okay, so far, everything looks pretty good. And then I watch her type the word obese on her screen. I'm like, is it? But she hadn't seen my blood work yet. We got that back in here. There is a little bit of bad news. I now know that I am pre-diabetic. Yeah. So I want to say I've been on the road with Quinn for a year, and he's with me this second year. And I know that some of this material is going to be a little weird coming out after him, talking about like, you know, he's big and he's sexy. That's not what I'm doing. I love body positivity and all that, but I'm not saying big and sexy. I'm coming out and more being like, I have diabetes. It's not the same. All right, so far so good. We're gonna put a check mark by a few of those things. But I'm trying to make some changes. I actually have lost a few pounds, and it's like, what? I quit smoking. I quit. Thanks. I quit smoking. I quit drinking. Like when I say I quit drinking, like I'm gonna have a bottle of wine after the show. Like, you know what I mean. I'm like, what else do you want from me? I replaced all of it with large amounts of marijuana. Yeah. I have high blood pressure, I have high cholesterol, I have high blood sugar. Everything was already high. All right. That first page went pretty well. You guys don't know how much power you have tonight. You're basically deciding what goes in my new hour. So use your laughs wisely. So that's the first element that is making things different, just like my age group now. And the second thing is I just recently left my partner of a decade. Yeah, and I mean, don't feel too bad. It was one of those, it was kind of a slow motion breakup. We drug it out for way too long. It was mostly mutual. If it tells you anything, as we were separating, our heaviest question was should we stay together for the cats? But not even cats could keep us together. We had 3 cats. We had Franklin, Barbara, and Comet. And it was honestly, it was hard to know what to do with them as we were separating. So we had them put to sleep. I'm a little bummed out that joke worked so well, because now that's in the show. Now I have to walk out every night and tell people I put my cats to sleep. No, I didn't. They're fine. At the end of this evening, I'm going to tell you a story about our last night together. It's an essay that I've entitled Surprise Patio Blowjob. You probably can't guess what it's about. It's a harrowing tale about a blowjob that happened on my patio. The surprise is I wasn't part of it, okay? We'll get to that in good time. So yeah, those elements are, I'm in a place I wasn't quite expecting in life. I feel like I'm in some weird late night infomercial, like I'm staring out the window in a robe with a cup of hot tea. And it's are you starting over at 50? With Crohn's disease? Why is every commercial right now about Crohn's disease? And they're all everybody has Crohn's disease. We've got it. That's probably next for me, I guess, the way things are going. You know what? I just came out here and launched into all this. We should have gotten to know each other. Does anyone here tonight have Crohn's disease? That's good. Does anyone here tonight have irritable bowel syndrome? Over there? Okay. If you need to get up during the show, we all understand. Do we have any pescatarians here tonight? Pescatarians? Cool. The pescatarians just high-fived each other. What did you have? What did you just eat there? What's on that plate?
It's a Mediterranean platter.
The Mediterranean platter. Was there fish involved?
No.
What the hell kind of pescatarians? Do we have any real pescatarians? Do we have people who care about fish eating? All right. Do we have any non-binary florists here this evening? Any non-binary florists? You have what? You're shocked? You're right. I would expect Portland to have more non-binary florists. Does anyone here tonight have a sense of ennui? Yeah. That might be what I change. That's going to be what this special is called. A sense of ennui. It's going to be a big hit. All right. Enough of that getting to know each other stuff. So yeah, I guess I'm putting myself out there again. I don't even know if I want that, honestly. Like, I want it, but I don't want it. Does anyone understand that combo? Yeah. That's a place where I'm at. I didn't expect it. I do want it and don't simultaneously. And it is, yeah, it's especially like when you're bitter. No, no, I'm not bitter, honestly. I'm really not. But it is weird, like, meeting people again. I went on a date, and we're trying to have this, like, flirty conversation, and I'm not good at it. Like, all of my answers are just lies. I'm trying to be sexy, and I don't know how. It's just lies. And he really starts to go for it, and he's like, "What's your favorite position?" And I'm like, "Oh, man, it's crazy. It's like backward. It's just backward, I think. People like it backward, right?" If I'm being truthful, my favorite position is one where every square inch of my body is supported with a pillow. Like, no muscle in my entire body is engaged. That's my favorite position. That's not sexy. I think shower sex sucks. You can't breathe. I feel like I'm gonna fall. Like, can we get some of those 1980s flower stickers in the bottom of the tub? Can we get like a medical shower chair for me to hold on to? I'm going to slip. And thankfully, one unexpected thing, my age group, middle-aged gay man, my high school years were 1988 to 1992. And that was the height of the AIDS era. I'm sorry I made you woo just then. How weird would it have been if they wooed after I said AIDS? So when I was 20, there weren't a lot of me. Like, I remember going to the gay bar on my college campus, and it was a lot of really older men and college kids. There wasn't like an in-between age. Like, I'm kind of a new thing. You know, gay men in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I didn't see that growing up. And now, putting myself out there again, a lot of people are really into daddies. And apparently I am that. I just want you to know that this is a daddy costume. Like, if you have daddy issues, I have nothing for you. I don't even know how to do it. Like I'm gonna take away your PlayStation. You better turn that music down. I have diabetes. in my super fundamentalist church when it was the 90s. I grew up in a super fundamentalist Christian church when it was the 90s. Also, side note, super fundamentalist church is not like an actual denomination. That's so many people come up to me now and they're like, I also went to a super fundamentalist church. I'm like, that's not really a thing. That's just how I talk. I do want it to be in the Urban Dictionary eventually, but Shamala Hamala is in the Urban Dictionary. Did you know that? It says it's what atheists say to each other as a greeting. So I did. My teenage years were spent in this really strict, conservative Christian church. People are often surprised when they see pictures of me from that era because, yes, we were super strict and conservative in theology, but in style, we were really cool. Like, we all had, like, frosted mullets for Jesus. My mom and dad bought me a leather motorcycle jacket for Christmas. I wanted it so badly, and I finally got it. It was so cool. And my mom had a bedazzler. So I bedazzled the word Jesus on the back of my black leather motorcycle jacket in sparkles. And then the church office, in the church office, there was this giant plastic bag of plastic baby fetuses. And we passed them out to people for some reason. I don't know why, but I took one of the plastic baby fetuses and I kept it in the breast pocket of my sparkly Jesus jacket. And then to make the whole look really cohesive, I also bedazzled the plastic baby fetus. No, I just made that part up. But I did keep one of them in the pocket of my jacket. And sometimes, once in a while, online, I'll post a picture of me in the Jesus jacket. And if you ever see it, I want you to know that in the breast pocket is a plastic baby fetus. So yeah, we were trying to be the cool church, to like reach people. We wanted to be like, it was insane. We had like our morning music was a rock band. We had a smoke machine and lasers. It was over the top. We were trying to be like MTV church or something. Or probably more accurately, VH1 church. Like on VH1, there might be a documentary where Sheryl Crow loses her record deal. But in our church, it's like Sheryl Crow got a brand new record deal, and that record deal is Jesus Christ. Can I get an amen in here? Can I get a shamala hamala up in here? Are you guys atheists? I don't know if this is the night to try this. Like, well, no, I don't even have this thought worked out, because I want to say more about Sheryl Crow. I have a real strange thought about, I don't know why, there's something funny to me about Sheryl Crow. I'm trying to zero in on it. I don't want to like go down a Sheryl Crow hole right now. Why was that so hard for me to say? Sheryl Crow Hole. You guys try it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Sheryl Crow Hole.
She made like a contraction and she said Sheryl Kroll. Made it more complicated. Near the beginning of my show, I said the phrase Sheryl Crow Hole. I find that mildly hard to pronounce. So I asked the audience to give it a try. And the entire room said it in perfect unison. It's almost as if you rehearsed it before I came out. But unfortunately, one person was not here for rehearsal. The Sheryl Crow Hole rehearsal. Even the pescatarians, who would never go near a Sheryl Crow Hole, unless, I don't know, are there fish that live in the Sheryl Crow Hole? If you ever encounter a Sheryl Crow Hole in the wild, be extra careful. There's a species of fish that lives in the Sheryl Crow Hole. And they're down there like, all I wanna do is have some fun. But I've got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do. Okay. This is not the direction I want to go in. With my new comedy special. Now entitled Sheryl Crow Hole. All right, never do any of that again. Okay, so in my youth group, well, in my small town, I grew up in a small town in Indiana. And, okay, do we have some people from Indiana here tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, calm down. In my small town, every fall, there was this thing called the Fall Festival. And it was, like there were carnival rides and fried foods and stabbings, like that kind of vibe. And someone in my church made this giant wooden cross. And every year, the youth group took the giant wooden cross down to the Fall Festival, and we would stand in the middle of the crowd with this huge cross. And we were at the Fall Festival, and it was my turn to hold the giant wooden cross. Frosted mullet, sparkly Jesus jacket, plastic baby fetus. And this kid from my high school walks up and starts talking to me. And his name was Tommy. And Tommy was like the original goth kid in the 90s. I had to really reach for that. That was spontaneous. He was like the original goth kid. Like before it was even a thing, really. He wore like a Bauhaus t-shirt and like the dyed black bangs and like faggy little ninja slippers. It was a whole look. And it also so happens that Tommy was really flamboyant and effeminate. Now, as it turns out, Tommy is not gay. Me, sparkly Jesus jacket, gay. But I couldn't admit that yet. When I was like 17, I was really confused about it, and I was super paranoid that everyone was gonna think I was gay, because I was. But I didn't want anyone to know that yet. So flamboyant, effeminate Tommy is right here talking to me, and I start getting so paranoid that everyone at the fall festival was gonna think we were gay. So I had to come up with a plan to get Tommy away from me. And I look over, and the line for the corn dogs was super long. And I'm like, hey, Tommy, will you go buy me a corn dog? And he did. He went and waited in the line. Problem solved. Now no one at the fall festival thinks we're gay. I didn't really think this through, because eventually Tommy returns with the corn dog. And my hands were full with the giant wooden cross. So Tommy just inserted the corn dog into my Sheryl Crow hole. And I look over, our youth pastor, Pastor Greg, is just watching Tommy penetrate my face with a corn dog. All right, that went pretty well. That's definitely staying. If you didn't grow up in this weird subculture in the 90s, I'm sorry. In the 90s, I promised a lot of that, and I'm not delivering. I think about this a lot when I look back. We said so many weird things. Like, we used weird phrases all the time. I didn't question it in the moment, but now looking back, I'm like, those are weird things to say. One thing we said all the time, it was a thing that we did called binding Satan. Binding Satan. We've got some Satan binders over there. Yeah. We loved it. It made us feel powerful, I think. And it's a thing like we could, if while you were praying, like at church, someone would just start talking directly to the devil and say, I bind you, Satan. And it must have not lasted very long, because sometimes the next person would also say, I bind you, Satan. Like, is the devil somewhere like, damn it, they won't quit binding me. Didn't last super long. We also said a phrase in combination with binding Satan. We would then say, we would pray a hedge of protection around whatever we were binding Satan from. I didn't question that at in the moment, really, because I'm like, a hedge, like some bushes? Doesn't sound super protective. Which is why it's important to bind Satan so he can't get through the bushes. Another thing we did in youth group a lot was this thing called holding each other accountable. I know, this is the worst one, if you were there. This is the thing that starts your trauma. You're gonna hold someone accountable, someone's gonna hold you accountable, we'll catch people doing something and we'll hold them accountable. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's being all up in each other's business for Jesus, whether you want it or not. And I have a really moving holding you accountable story I'm gonna tell you. But first, why are there no pets in the Bible? Pets are such a huge part of our lives. And there's no pets in the whole thing. Like, it'd be a totally different story if Jesus had like a parakeet. And it'd be like, "Bark. If you lust after a woman, you've committed adultery. Bark." Bark. If your eye offends you, pluck it out. That one weirdly sounds like it was written by a parakeet. Or at the crucifixion, "Bark. It is finished." Hey, if some of you thought that was offensive, you're imagining something that I'm not imagining. I was imagining like a tiny little cross with the parakeet crucified. But the story doesn't end there. 3 days later, that parakeet rose from the folded up newspaper in the backyard. Crucified parakeet is definitely in the show. It's my favorite part so far. This is a question people ask me quite a bit, and I understand why you would ask me this. It makes sense. People often ask me, what is my relationship with my mom and dad today? How do my parents feel about me today? And this is like the plot twist. This is going to blow your minds. My mom and dad never went to church. In high school, I just got sucked into a fundamentalist Christian youth group. My parents had no part of it. I did it to myself. Crazy, right? So yeah, I was so totally paranoid that people were going to start to know my secret. And I'm gay in a small town in Indiana in the 90s. And it makes you do weird things. I started keeping a journal about my walk with Jesus. And I filled this journal with pages of what I thought a straight Christian man would feel and think in his private thoughts. Right, it's really sad and also really crazy because no one was ever going to read this, supposedly. And I remember the opening line to my fake straight Jesus journal. I can still see it. The opening line was, "Oh, how I love women." Oh. Why did I write that? And why was imaginary straight me so wistful about the female form? How my loins hearken unto the vag. So it started becoming really unsatisfying that no one had ever read my journal after all this work I put into it. And I decided I needed to hold someone to hold me accountable. So I picked a guy in my youth group, that was the same age as me. And I don't want to use his real name. What's his name? Wade?
Daniel. Kyle.
I'm just curious, what's your inspiration for these names? It's got to be what?
It's got to be biblical.
A biblical name, Jesus. No. Jedediah. All right, it's Jedediah. Satan. So I ask Jedediah to meet me at a coffee shop to hold me accountable. And I brought with me the journal to read Jedediah some selections. And we sat down, I'm like, this is gonna be super personal. And Jedediah was like, I'm ready. And I start to read from the journal. I'm like, today I would like to examine the breast. How I find it titillating. How it titters to and fro. What I wasn't expecting is as I'm reading the passage, this intense sexual energy starts coming off of Jedediah as I'm reading my fake straight Jesus journal. And I thought, oh, Jedediah is gonna hold me accountable a lot more often. I loved it. I start meeting regularly with Jedediah to read him new selections from the journal. And I start custom writing entries for what I think Jedediah will like. It was hot. That year, we did a Thanksgiving dinner for the homeless. And before the dinner, we were in the kitchen, and I was working with Jedediah. And Jedediah is chopping up these pre-cooked sausages. And Jedediah said, these sausages are delicious. And then I said, are they? And then Jedediah just stuck his finger in my mouth. And I sucked the sausage juice off of Jedediah's finger. And then I look over and Pastor Greg is just watching Jedediah. And then I notice right before the dinner, I look over and Pastor Greg threw the tray of sausages into the trash. So growing up in Indiana, especially that time period, do some of you remember what we thought was healthy eating in the 90s? Everything was like low-fat dressings. My mom would buy these like sugar-free Snackwell cookies. And someone just said Subway. Do you remember like Subway convinced all of us that if you wanted to eat healthy in the 90s, eat as many foot-long Subway sandwiches as you possibly can and pair it with Olestra chips. Do you remember those? There was a chip in the 90s that they chemically made like an oil that had no fat in it. So they were chips that were like fat-free, but they were still fried somehow. And on the bag, it said, may cause anal leakage. Why did half the room just chant that with me? Like that was a memory from the 90s. It was like, may cause anal leakage. That was a weird thing for us to all come together around. But also kind of beautiful. So thank you. I want to tell you, I ate the Olestra chips, and I never had anal leakage. I mean, I do now, but I didn't then. Ew. Someone just had anal leakage. That's what that sounded like. This is also not the direction I want to take with the new hour. I'm gonna cross off a few things. So like for Thanksgiving in Indiana, if you wanted to have, everything was really bland, like seasoning wise. If you wanted to have some green beans in Indiana, you just open the can of green beans, dump the whole thing into a pot, heat it up, and that's it. That's your green beans. And then you scoop your green beans with green bean water onto the plate with green bean water. If you want spaghetti in Indiana, you boil your spaghetti, you don't drain it, and then you just scoop the spaghetti water onto the plate on top of your green bean water. In Indiana, everything's floating in water. Also, I don't know how this is related, but I think it might be. Back then, we all had water beds. So, I didn't realize I'd never eaten like good food until like embarrassingly later in life. And for senior prom, I went on a double date with guess who? Jedediah and our prom dates. We went to to us at least, a fancy restaurant. It was probably Olive Garden. It wasn't, because the first course was a salad, and on the salad was real ranch dressing. And I didn't even know that I had never had that before. And I took a bite of the real ranch dressing, and it exploded in my mouth. And I made a huge scene. It was so delicious. I couldn't shut up about the ranch dressing. I was like, ranch dressing on prom night. And everyone was like, Jesus, Kevin, shut up about the ranch dressing. It was so amazing. And then I look over, and Jedediah is holding Stephanie's hand. Yeah. So you know what I have to do? I have to hold Jedediah accountable. We took that really seriously. I mean, if you were part of it, like 90s youth group, sexual purity culture was ridiculous. We would even say, if you are holding someone's hand that you end up not marrying, you're holding hands with someone's future wife or husband. And yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking first, ranch dressing on prom night. And also, I have to hold Jedediah accountable. So Jedediah gets up to go to the bathroom. I follow him to hold him accountable. And in the bathroom, I'm like, hey, I noticed you were holding Stephanie's hand. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, did you pray about that? And he was like, actually, yes. And I was like, oh, so you're gonna marry Stephanie? And Jedediah said, yeah, I think so. And I was heartbroken. And I was also thinking, ranch dressing! I keep having these like existential moments of sadness. And I don't regret leaving my partner. It needed to happen for the best for both of us. I know that. But I still keep encountering all these things that are just sad moments. And one of them is around Thanksgiving. This past Thanksgiving, we used to drive up to see my mom and dad all the time. And we'd stay at the same hotel, like all these little things that were traditions that I didn't even realize were traditions. And I keep encountering them and going, oh, that will never happen again. And it's fine, but it's sad. Do some of you know what I mean? Yes. You don't want to go back, but it's still just, you're sad for the things that will never exist again. And so I'm driving up to see my mom and dad for the first time in a decade by myself. So it's making me feel a certain kind of way, and I'm a little grumpy. And I have a lot of tattoos, but my most recent one is this one on the back of my hand. And I'm driving up to see my mom and dad, and I'm starting to have this like teenage angst fantasy in my head where my dad sees this tattoo for the first time, and he's like, oh, Kevin, oh no, don't get a tattoo on your hands. Oh my God. I'm 50 years old, my dad is 75. But I'm still having this like angsty thing about my dad seeing this for the first time. So I walk into my parents' house for real, and my dad does see it right away. But he's like, oh, is that a butterfly? Did you get a butterfly tattoo? Oh, look, Kevin has a butterfly tattoo. You know what? Your niece has a butterfly tattoo. Come over here and show Uncle Kevin your butterfly tattoo. And my niece walks over and she's like, and I'm standing there like, fuck you, Dad! I am grateful for all of the both love and heartbreak that I've experienced in my life. Even when it has really sucked, I am grateful for the experiences and like all the different shapes and colors it takes. I sometimes say that I feel like all of the sadness in my life over so much time has compressed into like a weird little jewel that lives inside of me. And I'm glad it's there. It's me, and it's valuable. The worst heartbreak I ever experienced was, I was a lot younger. You can't get your heart broken quite like you can when you're young, right? And for that, I'm thankful. I'm glad it shaped me and formed me, and it shaded the color of my weird heart jewel. But I had moved to Los Angeles with my fucking beautiful boyfriend, but I didn't know him very well. I was just sort of swept away. I moved to LA to start my career in stand-up comedy. It was like 18 years ago. And we got to LA, and at first it was pretty good. And then he kind of started to unravel and became a disastrous alcoholic. And I'd never really been around that before, and it was scary, and it made everything really terrible. And the first night something awful happened. He got up off the couch, and he went to the kitchen, and he could hear the sound of like really heavy water hitting the floor. And I walk into the kitchen, and he's just full on like drunk peeing onto the kitchen floor. And it scared me and it surprised me, and I didn't know what to do. So I just instinctively reached out and clamped off his penis. And when I did that, my first thought was, that was a really weird sensation. Like clamping off a heavy urine flow in someone else's flaccid penis. I'll probably never quite experience that again. So just for like the experience, I gave it one more blast, just so I could feel it one more time. And then when I did that, he started to giggle, and I can't turn down a laugh, so I went ahead and gave it like 5 comedy squirts. And we just laughed. We were having the best time. That was the most painful one. The dumbest one is this one. I met this guy on Grindr, and his picture, I used to get really blinded by hotness. Who doesn't, I guess? But I would lose my better judgment. This picture of this guy on Grindr, it was like this beautiful man, like he looked like he was standing on a beach in Rio de Janeiro. It looked like someone just screenshot the website for a gay cruise ship. So I kind of thought it wasn't real when I saw the picture, but he asked if we could meet, and I agreed to it, and we decided to meet at a bar called the Puckering Orifice. And I walk into the Puckering Orifice, and there he is. He really is the guy in the picture. He's this beautiful man from Brazil. His name was Leo. And Leo told me the Puckering Orifice was his favorite place, and he comes there all the time. And we really hit it off. And I have this memory one night of laying in his bed. This is like weeks later, okay? It was the night we met at the Puckering Orifice. And starting to feel like I could really like this guy. And then he completely ghosted me. Right. What'd you say? Julio hasn't even... Ooh, Leo. Oh. Julio comes later. He just ghosts me. Gone. And you know, like, when you don't get any closure, or it makes it, like, it can do something to you. It can make it, like, hard to let go of. So, Leo ghosts me. Months go by. And I had a show in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles from where I met Leo, kind of in the past. I go to this show in Washington, D.C., I'm in my hotel room, and I open up the app Grindr, and the first picture on Grindr is who? It's Leo. And according to Grindr, hundreds of miles from home, months later, and according to Grindr, Leo is 0 feet away. Am I Leo? What kind of gay Fight Club twist is this? I thought it was some sort of weird glitch in my phone. I didn't think much of it, and I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up, and I walk out my hotel room door, and right then I hear the door right next to me open. And I look over, and there he is, Leo, hundreds of miles from home, on the other side of my hotel wall. And we both just looked at each other in confusion. It was such a weird moment. And we said something, I can't even remember what, and just parted directions. And as he was walking away, I was like, did I do that with my brain? Was that like, did I like manifest Leo in my universe? And then I never saw him again that whole trip. I think he requested a room change to get away from me. Months later, it's New Year's Eve. And for New Year's Eve, I decide to go to the Puckering Orifice. I walk into the Puckering Orifice. It's beautiful. Everyone's dressed up with a glass of champagne. And then I look across the room, and there he is, Leo. And it's almost midnight. Everyone starts to count down. 10, 9. Balloons and confetti fall from the ceiling. as the crowd parts and I begin to walk in slow motion toward Leo. And then it's midnight, and Leo and I kiss passionately. Let old acquaint... No, just kidding. Why is this turning into like a weird one-man show? I don't even know what I'm doing right now. That is not what happened. That's like the fantasy New Year's Eve version of what I wanted to happen. What did happen, I did go to the puckering orifice for New Year's Eve because I thought I might run into him. I just got weirdly obsessed for some reason. I told you this is the dumbest one. And I did see him as soon as I walked in, and he looks over at me, and now I've got to pretend like I don't see him, and he's not why I'm there. Midnight comes and goes, and now I'm just drunk. So I like stumble over to Leo, I'm desperate, and I'm like, does you remember me in DC? And Leo's like, yeah. And then I realize in that moment, Leo thinks I stalked him to Washington, DC. And now I'm just completely desperate and drunk, and I literally kind of stumble toward him to kiss him, and he turns his head. And then I left. Years later, I'm on my laptop, and I'm on Facebook. Do you guys remember Facebook? And I was like, I wonder if I could find Leo on Facebook. And I found him right away. It was easy. And I didn't think twice about it, and I sent Leo a friend request on Facebook. Moments later, Leo accepts my friend request on Facebook. And then I blocked his ass. You know, when you're putting yourself out there again, it's vulnerable. Like, I think right now my overwhelming feeling is I so badly don't want to repeat mistakes. I don't want to repeat lessons I've already learned. And I guess I'm now telling myself if I don't need to repeat them, then I won't. Right? One thing people say when they're like getting to know someone and you're starting to feel vulnerable, you're like looking for red flags. A thing that sometimes people say, like if you come over to their house for the first time, they're like, you're not a serial killer, are you? It's like an extreme nonsense thing to say because you're starting to feel vulnerable and you're like, oh, is this a huge mistake? Are you okay? Are you safe? You know, that's the feeling. Also, side note, I think I could escape from a serial killer if I needed to. I do. I've thought about this. Like if I went over to someone's house and they ended up actually being a serial killer, like he chains me up in his basement, and every night the serial killer comes downstairs to rub chicken salad all over my body. Serial killers have rituals. You can't question it. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm thinking ahead, okay? And one night he comes downstairs to rub chicken salad all over my body. And I'm like, hey, do you want me to rub chicken salad on your body? And that takes him off guard, right? And he lets me out of the chains, and I begin to rub chicken salad all over his body. And then the serial killer begins to softly cry. And I'm like, why are you crying? And the serial killer says, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, what? And the serial killer says, this isn't chicken salad. And I'm like, what is it? And the serial killer says, "It's my mom. It's mom salad." I'm like, wow, this is dark. Did you use ranch dressing? The last night that we were together, I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and something was really weird in the house. I just felt it as soon as I woke up. The house was like way too quiet, and I got out of bed, and I went to the bathroom, and then I peeked around the corner to see if he was asleep on the couch, which he normally was. And he wasn't there. And I looked down the stairs, and the chain lock was on the door, and I could see his car out front, but he wasn't up there anywhere, and the house was so quiet. So I start to walk down the stairs, and I'm getting like a weird feeling, like, what am I about to find? Is he okay? Like, what's happening right now? And I walk through all the rooms downstairs, and he's not there. And then I look over at the back door, and it's unlocked. And I walk over to the back door. We had this like really bright floodlight right out the back door. And I flip on the light. If you've never like suddenly illuminated someone getting a blowjob on the patio, you just get like two faces that are like, as soon as I realized what I was looking at, I flipped the light back off. And now don't get too upset. At this point, we had already broken up. I just hadn't moved out of the house yet. And we were two middle-aged gay men who had been together for a decade. We were already pretty much open at this point anyway. Our only rule was never inside the house. So he remained faithful all the way to the end. I flip off the patio light, and I hear the other guy say, "Was that it was the 90s guy?" Thanks, guys. You've been awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you, Portland. You're beautiful. I love you. In a few moments, I'm going to give everyone a chance to disperse. I'll reappear out by the t-shirt table. If you'd like to form a line, we can quickly take a photo together if you'd like to. You don't have to, but I'll be available for that in a few minutes. Thank you so much. It's been a lovely evening. Thank you. Thank you.